Hey, good morning. Are y'all awake? All right, man, let's get it then. Today we're going to continue talking about our story, and our story today is we're going to be talking about Abram. Now remember, last time I was talking with you, we were talking about Abram, and Abram was a man who was blessed by God. But why was Abram blessed? Anybody remember? To be a blessing, right? We are blessed. This is our story. We are blessed, but not blessed to keep the blessing, but blessed so that we can be a blessing. Now, the way this was working out for Abram is that he was blessed and he was accumulating more than he could bless with. And it was just overflowing. And this is kind of the way God works in our lives. Like, if we are willing to be a blessing, we will always have more than we could ever use. But as long as we want to keep everything, then it just kind of dries up and rots, right? So Abram was blessed so that he could be a blessing. But he goes to God and he says, what's the point of all of this? Anybody ever done that? See, that's my story. Like, okay, God, you got me out here, now what? Right? Like, we're always doing this. Hey, Scott, man, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while. Firemen, you know how they are. We get out here and we're like, now what? You got me out here. You're blessing me. It's cool. You know, I'm being a blessing and everything. But what? When I die, what? When I have no one to leave this to. I have no one to turn this over to. I have no one to give this to. I have no one to carry on this thing you're doing in my life. And don't we want that? Don't we want our lives to mean more than just what we do right here, right now? I do. I want my life to mean more than this. I don't want this to go like, man, that was a good run. You know? Now, yeah, oh yeah, I think I remember something about that. Now, I want it to mean something. I want my life to matter. Because if my life doesn't matter after I leave, I feel like I've wasted everything I've been given. And I think a lot of us feel that way deep down, even though we disguise it in mediocrity. No, just kidding. We act as if we don't care, but truly I think we are made to care. I think we are made to want our lives to matter. And this is where Abram finds himself. I want this blessing and this blessed life, I want this to matter. But I guess the keepers of my house will get it all. And you know how the keepers of the house are. You know, they're not going to carry it on. They're not going to be a blessing. And God says, no. Here, listen to this. This is we're in Genesis chapter 15. Genesis chapter 15. And let's just start in verse 4. Genesis 15:4. It says this. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. Brandis was teaching last week on the word of the Lord coming. And as we go through our story, you're going to see that the word of the Lord comes often. Now, I want to just drop a little thought into your reading, into your wows or what ifs. Anybody have the wows or what ifs? Or like, I've never thought of that? The word of the Lord comes to these people often in a vision. Now, how many words have you heard in a vision? Like words you hear, visions you see. That's a weird statement, right? The word of the Lord came in a vision. What could the word of the Lord be? See, here's where I start thinking, just maybe there was this same word, because among the Hebrews and among the Jewish teachings, the word of the Lord was very important. And the word of the Lord was another name for the coming of Messiah. It was the word of the Lord. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the Messiah has been from the beginning and was all through the Old Testament. And when the word of the Lord, because when John starts his, he said, and the word was with us, and the word was among us, and the word became flesh. Right? So this word that was of the Lord, I truly believe this is the Messiah speaking. This is the Messiah speaking these visions, giving these visions, actually appearing and speaking to these people, because this word of the Lord consistently comes to these people, right? But then the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of God, doesn't really show up until like in the New Testament later, right after redemption. Remember that story, redemption? We'll get to it. It's a long story. So anyway, just food for thought. Just start to notice how often the word of the Lord shows up in the Old Testament. So the word of the Lord came to him. And he says, this man shall not be your heir. Your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, look toward heaven and number the stars, if you're able to number them. Anybody ever try that? A lot. It gets past 10, it gets complicated. Unless you got kids, and then, 10 each. And he believed the Lord. That's important. He believed the Lord. And he counted it to him as righteousness. Okay, so God says that these people, your servants, aren't going to be your heirs. Your very own offspring are going to be your heirs. And not only is that, but you're going to be the father of nations. You're going to have the numbers that will be more than the stars. That's a lot, right? I think it's funny when he says this, he starts out with, your very own son shall be your heir, and then it's your offspring will be as numerous as the stars. Because there's a connection there with the son who shows up to redeem the world. Okay, which was a son of Abraham, or Abram at this time. We're getting Abraham in a second, so I'll quit jacking with y'all with the whole. Y'all are like, has he ever read this? He know who that guy is? I know who he is, but he's Abram right now, right? He's Abram. All right, so here's what happens. Abram has a promise from the Lord, and he believes the Lord, so he goes home and tells his wife. Women, boy. No, I'm just kidding. He goes home and tells his wife. So I'm thinking, and it makes Abram's wife look kind of not good in this story, but I think this is a time where men were men, women were women, men had their place, women had their place, and like. So I don't think Sarai, is that how you say it, was like saying, this is what we're going to do. I think she said, I will be willing to do this. And Abram's like, this is what, good, we'll do this. So here's what happens. They decide, because get this, man, they're like nearly 100 years old. 100. That's old, man. Like if somebody told me I'm nearly 50, and if somebody said just half of that, right? That's the whole point. I'm 47 in just a few days. Like 60. So I'm like 45 in like 700 days. So like half of that, if somebody said, hey, Todd, you're going to have a kid, I'd just leave. I'll just pack up and go, and y'all never hear from me, see me, or know what happened to me ever again. That's the way it works. No, I've told Celia that. So if I'm just gone, you'll know what happened. I don't know if I could handle, man, do you realize how many years, I'm not talking, anybody had kids? Anybody have kids recently, like within the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years? Have you slept in the last 2 or 3 years? People don't realize, oh, I want a baby. Babies are so cute. You do not sleep, not for days or weeks or months. You do not sleep for years. I can't handle that right now. I'm 50 years, nearly 50, man. You can't handle not sleeping for a night. I'm glad you can pause the football games and get up in the morning and finish. You know what I'm saying? Nearly 100, and God blesses him. I mean, I had those blessings. God blesses him with a kid. It says he'll bless him with a kid. But she's like, I can't have kids. So here's what we'll do. We'll take my maidservant, and you can have a child with her, because this is your offspring that's going to be this promise. But that wasn't what God had told him. But all he heard was, you're going to be a father of many nations. So now he thinks it's his obligation and his duty to figure out how to make this happen. Can I get an amen? Anybody ever been on this path? That's a good one. It's a good one. So, this is just the way it works, okay? So, Abram gets his wife's maidservant pregnant, which is just, I guess history hadn't been around long enough for him to go, this is probably not the best idea. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not good. Who could ever see conflict coming? Women generally are just cool with that. In general, right? And some of you guys are going, this is my story. You know, like I know this story. And here's what I found. Women generally aren't cool with that. And so there was a problem, right? And so this son of this child of taking things into your own hands was born, but this wasn't the promise that God had said. And so there's now we have an issue that's come up, and so God comes back and he says, no, wait, here's the deal. Your wife, Sarai, she's going to have this kid. Now, how many of you ladies are like, say, not 100? All right? So like you're thinking now, man, 100 is quite old to be dealing, with morning sickness. I mean, 100 is pretty old to be dealing with Abram, much less everything that comes. Any guys, man, you remember when your wife was pregnant, you're going through all this? Like, and they're young and healthy and like able to do this, and it's really bad, man. I mean, pregnancy is just rough on women, man. I mean, they're sick and they seem to have some kind of thing where the temperature's always wrong and the moods are always swinging, and it's crazy. It's a crazy time. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, man. Like you know this, right? So, but you're not 100. You try this at 100. So this is the deal, right? And when his wife hears this, she actually laughs. Like, Like, very funny. But in chapter 18 and verse 13, it says this, that the Lord said to Abram, which I skipped a step because in between this, God changes his name, right? Now, this dude's 100. He's hanging out on the corner, with his buddies. And all of a sudden, God changes his name from Abram to Abraham, right? Now, this guy's 100 and doesn't have any kids, so he's still like Joe Cool single guy. Like, oh, you guys got kids. I know. I can do whatever I want to do, man. I can make decisions. They're about me. I know that's the way the guys are. They're out on and he comes to his buddies and goes, guess what, man? God's changed my name to Abraham. And they just, because they think it's a joke. God's a funny one anyway, because he changes this guy's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations, to a guy who's 100 and don't have a single kid. Like, it's ironic, right? It's really funnier than that, because in the Hebrew, it's like you take Abram and you add the H-A on it, Abraham, you throw the H-A in there, the ha. He does the same thing to his wife. Changed her name from Sarah to Sarah. Throws the old A-H, Adam, right? But something we don't know that they knew was that the A-H is the same word for the Spirit of God. You take Abram and Sarai and you add the the Spirit of God, and all of a sudden you have something that's a little different than ha. I still think it's funny though, man. Like, he put the ha on them because they're 100 and having a kid. And they didn't get it till the kid was born. Get it now, God, thanks. You'll know when you have yours, you'll know. And he says, in Genesis 13:18, he says this, and the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? But get this. God asked this, is there anything too hard for the Lord? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? Obviously, bearing children at 100 and raising them, you would say, impossible. But is there anything too hard for the Lord? So here's the situation now. We got Abraham and Sarah. We've got the maidservant with Abraham's child. And he names this child Ishmael. And God says this to them. He says, this child is going to be nations. The promise of God, man, it's like out there. Father of many nations, right? But if you give birth to an Ishmael, man, that promise is still going, right? And he says, and this kid will be wild from birth. Any of you heard that word from the Lord? Yeah, thanks God, after we have it. Be wild, and it will be at war, and people will be after him, and he will be against people his whole life. And you have a nation born by taking what God said to us, which was his promise, and taking it into our own hands and doing it our will and our way and having a better plan and making it all work out. And now we have an Ishmael. And then you have a promised son. You have the son of a promise, and the son of the promise is Isaac. And so now you have two nations. Two nations. Ishmael and Isaac. And today we still see this war. We still have Israel and the Arab nations. And they still are at war. And they're still fighting. And here's the thing. We have some people that say, we will bring peace to this. But there was something going on here in the Bible, right? Like, remember that thing? Like, they will always be against. So if, say, 8, 10, I don't know how many thousand years ago, somebody would have just said, okay, Lord, I'm waiting. How much better off would the whole world have been to this day? But no, occasionally we like to take things into our own hands. And we love to give birth to Ishmaels. And here's my problem, and I don't know if it's your problem, but I give birth to more than one. Like, I can have multiple Ishmaels. Like, God gives me something and I'm like, yeah, well, God, you're really taking a while with this one. So here's what we're going to do. I know I'm the only one that's ever done that, right? God, little girls in high school, God, just send me a husband. Someone who will love me and take care of me. I want just the perfect house and the perfect marriage and the perfect, oh God. I feel like the Lord told me He was going to bless me with the perfect husband. But I met this drunk dude at the bar last night. And there we go. And then it's 25 years of marriage counseling. This is our story. You're like, y'all were sitting there trying to figure out, how have I ever given birth to an Ishmael? I do. Right? Yeah. It happens. It happens. Man, it happens all the time to all of us. But sometimes we hear the promise of God, or we have this sense that God's leading us or calling us, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, that God is impressed upon us that we should be doing this, or that this is going to become our life or our ministry, or whatever you want to call it, or our thing. And we look at it and we go, man, that is impossible. It's impossible. I remember as I was going through this, and really, man, if you get anything out of this, cool, but this is really for me, so like, I remember I was going through this. I've been thinking about this for months because I knew this message was coming up. I read the book. I read ahead. I did that. So I knew this was coming up, so I've been thinking about this, and I really think this is me so much, because I see this thing that God, it's part of me. It's like, I remember whenever we were like feeling the sense that God wanted us to get involved in church and start ministering and caring for people and loving people. And the thing is, I have this thing, and if you've ever been around me, you know this about me, but I have this thing where I can never do anything the easy way. Like anybody else? Like, I always have to do it the hard way. And so like, instead of like all of these church planners that were coming out about the same time, man, they were like, well, here's how you do it. You go raise $150,000, then you hire a staff, then you launch a church in a white-collar neighborhood, with curbs and all that goody stuff, and then you throw up a church with a steeple on it. People are going to come out, and they're just going to start giving to the church, and it's going to be just wonderful. And I'm like, I need some addicts. I need some people that are broken. I need some people that are tore up. I need a place that where drugs are king and self-centeredness rules. I need something like that matters. I don't want some whitewashed thing. But I didn't know was that environment meant that, well, you have to, like, if you want a wall painted, you paint it. You don't hire somebody to, if you want floor laid, you lay it. You don't hire somebody, like, if you want, like, to build a building, then get your hammer and nail. I mean, it's a different type thing. And so I talk to these guys often, and they'll be like, well, here's the way we did it. We just had a campaign and just raised the money. And I'm like, dude, we can't raise the building payment every month. And I look at it and I think, and I thought, God, this is impossible. There's just no way this will ever work. And then you start going through this, like, well, I can't do this. I don't have any skills. And plus, I've never really liked being in crowds. Not a crowd person. Like, if I went to a concert, I would really dig it if I was the only one there. Like, it'd be all right with me. I love Texas Rangers, but man, going to that ballpark like, I need a section. Like my own section. Anybody else like that? And here's the thing I said in high school. They said, English 4 is very hard. People rarely pass it. Everybody just takes speech. And I'm like, stand in front of people and talk, give me the English. Like, I'm not going, I will do anything other than stand in front of people and talk. God, you got the ha-ha on me. You're going to change my name to Todd Ha-Ha. But God does something, man. He does something. And what is impossible looking to us is possible to God. I remember one of the things God said is He said, I want you to go to Canton. And I said, God, there's this verse in the Bible that says a prophet is never accepted in his own hometown. I'm bringing up his own words back like, hey, man, I got a few more verses too if you forgot about them. Because, man, I want to go somewhere cool. Like, I grew up here, and the only thing I remember saying about here is that when I get out of here, I will never, ever, 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 ever come back here for anything. Ishmaels, man. Ishmaels. They'll get you every time. So I show up back here. And so I have, not only do we not have any money, man, I didn't have a job, like a real job, like a career job. Because I lost that when we started church, because I couldn't do that there and this here. So not only did we not have any money, but we lost what source of money we had. So we're making like, I don't know, man. I don't remember what minimum wage was then, like $7, something like that. And it was impossible. God, it's impossible. And just one day after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after 15 years, here we are. We're still going. And and the reason I tell you this is because lately I've been in this same place that Abram and Sarah was in. Like, God, this is funny. You can't do this. You can't do what you've asked us to do. It's impossible. But then I look back and I'm like, God showed us, hey, I want you to do church. I want you to do it so radically different that it'll change church in your community, the way church is actually done. And when we started this church, nobody did church like this. Now everybody does church like this. But man, you don't look at that, you don't see that because you take the beating every day, and when you're taking the beating every day, anybody take that every day? I'm the only one? Come on, man. When you're taking the beating every day, you get lost in what's really happening. We lose the big picture often, don't we? And we're like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this. I look at this church, man, and I think, I don't know how to do this anymore. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I struggle with is, I start to question. Anybody start to question? Imagine Sarah about third trimester would be like, what? I ain't gonna finish. Just what? Just quit. Just what? I don't think when Ishmael and Isaac were just at each other, they were thinking, wow, this is awesome. Two great nations. And then I imagine they're sitting there going, oh God, please not as many as the stars. Please don't let it be twins. It's like, and so we start questioning, man. I start questioning, really? Can we even do this? Because I look and I'm like, where do we go from here? The world's changed, right? We all know that. People, I saw this thing the other day that said, do you realize over half the people in the United States say they don't go to church, right? Over half. Anybody ever not been to church on Sunday? Oh, not all y'all. Y'all are always here, right? But there's a lot of people out there. Of the half that do go to church on Sunday, the ones that say they go to church go less than once a month and call that going to church. And so the idea of this has changed. Our generation, it's a different world we live in today. And I ask God how, because every church is stagnant to shrinking. It's just people don't go to church anymore. Churches are closing. The numbers are staggering. Thousands of people leave the ministry every single month. If you had every seminary packed out, if you had thousands of pastors coming into the ministry every month, they still wouldn't be able to keep up. Churches are closing the doors every month. Hundreds and hundreds of churches every single month. And I ask God, how can we do this? How can we survive? We scrimp and we save and we do the least we can do to get by, and it's still going negative every single week. It's negative, 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 negative. There is no money. The attendance is down. For the last 5 years, from 2011, every year the budget has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and the attendance has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And I don't know what to do. I'm doing everything I know to do. I don't know that we're doing anything wrong. I mean, I'm asking God, if I'm wrong, just kill me. You know what I'm saying? Give me some relief, man. And I can stand here today and I can tell you I do not know what's going to happen. And I wish I did. But as I was reading this, Abram believed God. He believed God. He counted it to him as righteousness. And God told Abram, is there anything that I can't do? Now, I don't know how this is all going to work out, okay? But for me, I believe with sincerity that God can do anything. I've been burnt out for years. Not weeks and months, man. Weeks and months, those are just little... If you're burnt out for weeks or months, man, you're a rookie. Like rookies. I've been hurt so bad that I didn't know if I could face coming up here again. I've been destroyed. I've had my family destroyed. There's been so much. And I look at it and I'm like, I love movies, man. So like, remember in Armageddon? When they're getting ready to go, and he's like, how bad is it going to be? And it's going to be like, temperatures here on this side, temperatures here on that side, and rocks, and he's like, so as bad as humanly possible, as bad as it can possibly be. Just tell me. I'm like, that's the way I feel. Like, just how bad, it's just as bad as it's humanly possible, right? That's the way I feel a lot of times. But we miss the big picture. It's so easy to get there and miss the big picture. And a lot of you guys are going through stuff, man. You don't know where your next meal's coming from. You don't know if you have a job tomorrow. You don't know where your next dollar's coming in. You don't know if you go home today if you're going to have a family left. I understand the turmoil, because for me, man, I'm an Ishmael birther, man. I'm a take the bull by the horns kind of guy. Like, don't tell me I can't, because I can do anything. And I don't know how to tell you to let go and let God, because I don't even really know how to tell myself that. But I do know this. I do know God can do anything. Anything. If he can make a 100-year-old woman and a 100-year-old man have a baby, have babies and birth nations, he can take care of this, right? He can take care of your job. He can take care of your family. He can take care of your wife. He can take care of your life. He can take care of your ministry. He can take care of your finances. But see, here's the thing. When you get so burnt out and you get so down and you get so hopeless and you start turning negative and all that, and it starts to affect your health. Anybody have that? Because it will. It does. When that happens, man, and you get in that pit, you get in that thing, and it's just constant. And it's just that bombardment, man. And you get there, you forget. You forget that there are right things to do. I was never called to be a pastor, a preacher, a teacher, church planner. You know what I was called to do? Love the Lord my God with all of my heart. That's it. And sometimes I get so caught up in the war with the Ishmaels, because it's hard to blame. Like, when you're young, when you're in your 20s, man, you can blame anybody, right? Like, it's everybody else's fault. Mom's fault, dad's fault, world's fault, economy's fault, president's fault, Donald Trump's fault, Hillary Clinton, whoever. It's everybody's fault. When you get a little older, man, you got to look around and go, whew, boy, I've given birth to some Ishmaels. And they don't seem to be ever going away. But even though the Ishmaels are there, you realize the land of the promise is right in the middle of all those Ishmaels? Like, you ever look at a map and see where Israel is? You ever look around Israel? Seems to be like an island, right? But there's a refuge, man. There's a land of the promise. The land of the promise. And it's not my promise, it was Abram's promise. See, I'm going to bring you to a land flowing with milk and honey. I'm going to bless you and make you a great nation. Because of this, you can be a blessing. And all of this stuff, man, starts coming to me. I'm like, oh, yeah. I remember that. And I look back and I'm like, oh, man. I remember Chance coming here the first time, man. And you don't mind. I mean, you mind, like, Chance comes in here, man, and like, he scared me. You know what was scary when they walked in? Rick Bell scared me when he walked in. You remember those boots? Yeah. Like, this dude here is the young Nazi party. I don't know. I don't know what he is, man. He's scaring me, though. Like, making me nervous. Chance, man, if you just got to talk to Chance and get his story, man. It's like, he's like, yeah, he had this big cowboy hat on. Like, he sat right over here, man, big cowboy hat, always staring at me. And I thought, man, this cowboy and this guy back here are fixing to. And I start to say, man, you know what? Rick Bell is not who he was. Chance isn't who he was. Rena, man, you aren't who you were. I remember all these people coming in here, and I'm like, this matters. This place matters. And what God has shown us and what God wants from us, it matters. It matters. You can't get so caught up in yourself to forget that you're part of a bigger picture. You know why this church is going to survive? It has nothing to do with me. It's on you. See, this is what I've come to recently. It's on you. Like, we'll only be here as long as you're here. As long as you give. As long as you serve. As long as you're part. As long as you get that people like Rick and like Chance, and they're like people who, I remember Chance sitting there saying, man, I was in prison the last 8 years. And I'm like, really? Prison? Let me tell you a story, man. You need to know these stories. I sat with a guy when we started the church. We were in my mom's living room. There was like 7 of us, 8 of us, 9 of us. I don't remember. 10, 11, 12. There was a bunch. It's like, I don't know. But there was a group there, and I said, look, this church is going to be awesome. There's going to be addicts. There's going to be people who are coming out of wrecked homes and wrecked marriages. There's going to be child molesters. There's going to be alcoholics and drug addicts and dealers and cooks. And there's going to be people, ex-cons, and there's going to be cons. People who have actual warrants out. They're going to be sitting right there beside us in church. And this guy comes up after and he says, I ain't sitting in no church next to no ex-con. And I said, well, this is not ever going to be the place for you. And so we lost 2 people right off the bat. first day out. So we were already kicking it. I could see the trends. But see, I forget things like God doesn't love me any more than he loves everybody else. And what he did to pull me out of my hell, he will do to you to pull you out of your hell. But there's got to be a refuge, man. The church is too important. There's got to be a place. The church is us, but there's got to be a gathering of us. You understand? Like, I'm not the source of the healing. This, us, is the source. What we do is the source. And you've got to get that. You're part of something much, much, much bigger than yourself. That's why we sit through things that we don't like and we listen to things that we don't agree with and we just smile and clap along. Because we get that we are blessed because we get to be a blessing. So, yeah, you're going to give birth to some Ishmaels. I'd like to say I'm done. I'd like to say I'm not giving birth to any more Ishmaels. But I'm going to leave here today and do it. You are too. And the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing is, even though Abraham and Sarah and Hagar took what God meant for good and gave birth to a nation of hostile Arabs. And I don't mean that derogatory. I mean like, this is what God said. They will always be at war. You'll always be people against them and them against people. That's this nation. And get this. You need to get this. Okay, this is not an ethnic group. I know I didn't make that clear. This isn't Arabs are bad and Israelis are good, because I'm neither. Okay? Because Americans are just the best. Amen. No, I'm just kidding. No, man. No, that'll get on like some YouTube channel and man, this is going to go crazy. So here's the deal. No, man. This is a spiritual thing. Do you get what I'm saying? It's all a spiritual thing, right? The son of the promise, this is a spiritual thing. The children of Abraham is a spiritual nation. And the rogue nation is the nation that is against that in the spirit realm. It's a warring spiritual thing. And there is physical things that we can look at and see that's going on. But we have to understand that this is within us. The Ishmaels within us, and the Arab and the Israelis, or the Hebrew within us, the children of promise that I am, and the children of the decision to take it on my own is all within me. See, I don't want you to be confused about. I don't want you to go, he's racist, man. This is what's going on within each of us. This is our story. But the good news is that God loves us. And God did not turn his back on his people. Do you realize that even Ishmael, God protected him and blessed him? God's for us. I think we forget that. I know I do. I know I forget it often. I also forget it's one little thing. God can do anything. Even when we can't see it. There's that one verse that says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind can even conceive the good things that God has prepared for those. We just have to love him. We have to trust Him. We have to commit to Him. We have to be faithful to Him. It's by faith that Abraham walked out his promise. Do you realize that if Abraham had given up his faith, he would have quit? And if he would have quit, then we would have had Ishmaels and no Isaacs. That's not good, right? I've lived in that world. I think it's better. It's better with the promise. It's better to walk in faith. I don't know. I don't know what God's saying to you today. But He does love you and He is for you. And He is bigger than anything you're dealing with today. He's bigger than anything I'm dealing with today. He's for us. Do you believe that? Go, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe, let me think about that, Todd. I'll get back with you. How the way that response. Do you believe that? Amen. All right. Stand up with me. If you don't believe it, we can go again. No, let's eat. I'll believe anything if we can go eat.